Let's go ahead and get started. Let's see, hopefully. All right, so in case, I'm pretty sure everybody in here has watched last week's Zoom, but if you haven't, please watch last week's Zoom. Very, very important. Although we did discuss this and why this could create a downside movement, we also discussed what the plan is pretty much after this year in terms of where the brand is going. And I guess in summary, the Discord is going to be closing from any new people. So whoever is in, and it's never opening up again, like ever. And that you have my word on, it will never open again. And even if I still do something else with RCV, then it would be completely separate from this group. Not saying that I would leave you guys to go do something else with another group, but I'm just saying like everything in regards to this Discord is going to stay there. And I also mentioned what would happen with the website. It's still good for another year at least. So yeah, if you haven't watched that, please watch that. I did get some feedback. I will be answering that after the Zoom. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Cool. So like I said, we discussed last week why DXY could potentially show a willingness to come lower. And the reason why we had pretty much in summary, I discussed this on Tuesday as well, where pretty much the unsubstantial new high led to an internal liquidity grab. And that's pretty much what gave us the sign that we would probably continue lower. And I did say that we probably wouldn't see that deep of a retracement. We didn't get it perfect. It actually made it almost to the full inefficiency, but you can see the inefficiency zone. And that still, in my opinion, is considered a very light retracement, nothing big. So now, after Tuesday, I believe Tuesday we were right around here when we had the big move from 8 a.m. So the target for that minor intraday move has been met, that being said green line. So now this is where it gets a bit interesting because in my opinion, EU looks a bit more convincing than DXY, and I'll go ahead and cover why in a bit. But if we are to consider this to be a turbulence point, you can say that we have not broken through yet, right? And you can say that there is an efficiency fill as of right now being mitigated, and that is what is creating an internal reaction right now. So right now, the only main point of interest that I am looking into, is the continuation. Why? Because this could be considered a minor intraday turbulence point internally, and that is the only reason why I'm kind of pointing that out. But I will point this out too. This is important, so I can delete that. And the reason why this is important is because this is going to really tell us whether or not we're going to completely transition from a swing standpoint, because from a major intraday, we have, created a conversion and a short-term move. But because of the bounce from said turbulence point, this, is still in alignment with our original structural range, that being bullish. And we have noted, a previous point of reference. So as of now, this, in my opinion, is going to be a very, very big area as to what is going to happen with this, whether we're going to really collapse, which is kind of more so what I would really like to lean toward. I would really like to lean toward that downside move. Why? Because also from the structural range perspective, we do have a low into a high. The retracement has been solidified after continuation BOS. That solidification has been broken. So that's also kind of why I really want to assume a potential big change of direction. And I guess you could also tie that towards US 30, where not here, where our 3-day POI has been broken through, and they are technically quote unquote inverse. So because that has broken through, this shows that we would probably be looking at, right, the continuation from a swing perspective, that being low into high retracement. But from the major intraday stance, there is still potential room for downside, that being this point of reference here, where this point of reference is still in alignment with the internal structural disruption that we had covered not only last week, but a couple of weeks ago. So this, in my opinion, is also going to be very, very important, very, very crucial for next week, because you can also assume that the fuel has been obtained and we are now looking for a transition here. So the immediate continuation, as you can see, gave no internal reaction, and we could even look at that through here if it'll load. Okay, yeah, it'll load. So same thing here. Like we said, there was no internal reaction. Right, as you can see, low, 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 low. No significant low was broken, right? And the reason why I don't really consider this is because this is the low that created the high. So that would still be technically in minor intraday alignment. So yeah, as of right now, I do want to assume a potential bearish move. But this will also be very, very crucial with how we react from this US 30 move. Because I could be completely wrong, and this could just be a continuation BOS confirming a liquidity grab, and that this is bullish. That could also be a scenario. But yeah, let's go ahead and go into EURUSD. EURUSD, this is kind of the one. I like this much more than I like DXY, and the reason why I'm pointing that out is because I am still technically bullish on here. We know that last week, right, we assumed that based on the liquidity grab that we are just looking for that immediate continuation, and it kind of hit to the T per se. So that move has occurred, but there is a bit of a conflicting bias here, because from, right, your swing perspective, your high into your low, right, that is still technically in play. So let me actually, I'm going to delete all of this. That has been taken out, right? And this is where that turbulence point that I was mentioning on DXY, this is where inversely this is showing me something a lot different. Whereas here, we got the reaction from the turbulence point, and we have created the order flow disruption. The order flow disruption, right now, in order for it to be valid in my eyes, and it not just being a deeper retracement, is if we get a bounce from this relative area here. Why is this area important, or why is it standing out? This is where the character changed, and this is the last time where we saw some decent move into the upside. So yeah, as of right now, tomorrow, or not tomorrow, I'm sorry, on Monday, I really would like to see some sort of bounce here. And this bounce would really just give us that, would pretty much be that catalyst that'll really start giving us, you know, 400, 300 pips into the upside. So yeah, just be on the lookout for that. AUDUSD, oh, actually, I did mention the conflicting bias with a swing high and low, but then the order flow disruption could show differently. Yeah, I did. Next one, AUDUSD. This one we know is still technically bearish, right? And I know we circled that before. So let's go ahead and do a general area, right? So we have seen a bounce to the upside, but the main conflicting thing, even though we said we were short-term bullish, right, after the failed reaction to the downside of that quote-unquote whiplash, because that has you know, given us that short-term movement to the upside, right? As of right now, this mitigation is in play. We can do this. Right, so this is kind of in an interesting spot. Why? Because we have seen the mitigation play out here. This is currently in play, and as you can see, we are currently at a relative turbulence point. So, excuse me. Yeah, I don't know what is going on. This does not want to load. Okay. So as of right now, we are in said turbulence point. We are even seeing price start to stall out a bit. But what I don't like to see is that we had already done this. We already did the continuation BOS, and we already gave the failed reaction. So this is kind of giving me signs that this POI might not really work out. And if that does not work out, then we can zoom back out and assume that if this POI breaks, then that is technically, right, a confirmed reaction, not just from the minor intraday, but from the major intraday as well. And then that means that you could start really targeting maybe even this POI down here. And the reason why I'm targeting this isn't a bullish POI, but it is a POI that is standing out to me. So that would be a decent target from a bearish move. But yeah, as of right now, it doesn't look like this wants to work. It could obviously change if we get an internal continuation BOS to the upside, but I don't like that we have already given that failed reaction here earlier during the session. Gold, this one interesting as well, because we mentioned last week that we, last Friday, that we had pretty much converted over to a bullish bias. That bullish bias, and now in my opinion, has converted back into a bearish. Why? Because we met the invalidation, therefore we were bullish, and that bullish target has been met. The bullish target was met. This fuel has now generated a counter liquidity grab, right? So let me actually clean this up for you guys. All right, so this now has shown to me, right, that we were short-term bullish and we had the reasons to be short-term bullish, but now that the target has been met and we have converted, now I do see this being bearish. And there's a very, very clear target in sight. And this is kind of where you see where my doubts were 2 weeks ago, where I didn't want to be bullish on this only because of how deep the retracement was. And that's why I wasn't really too keen on buying it, only until we met obviously the invalidation and the short momentum to the downside, or the small momentum to the downside. That is when we said we could be bullish, and that is why we actually got that move into the upside where the target was met, the initial target. But you guys know, as we say, we do not know what will happen after liquidity is met. So now I guess you can see those doubts that I used to have with this bullish move start to show themselves in the form of this internal liquidity grab. Meaning that we are probably now going to see, right, more downside. And I would really, really like to see this, because there is relative equal lows. And if we do take those out, then we're looking at potentially then now we can maybe see some sort of transition, but that would obviously take a long time just because this is a 2 hour and this move has taken over a month to manifest itself. So yeah, as of right now, the short medium term bias would be, in my opinion, to be looking at that bearish side. And I think that would conclude the pairs for today. All right, US 30, we know what we're looking at. Gold, we saw the transition. EURUSD, we are also looking for a potential POI. AUDUSD, we're in the POI, but we're not really too confident that this will hold. And DXY, as you can see, is still, right, potentially getting into a relative point of interest. So yeah, do you guys have any questions? Any questions today? What are you guys trading? What are you guys looking at? Caught the gold sell, but that's it. Yeah, I believe there was a structural disruption somewhere inside there. I was looking at that this morning. Yep, structural disruption, failed reaction here, confirmed here, continuation based on this POI. GSL broke even, now long, partial secure, so far so good. Nice. Wow, that looks very similar. Yep, another good one. Failed reaction, as you can see here. And break of structure here, internal structural disruption, because that is a premium. Yep, premium. POI, very nice. Yep, perfect. Yep, perfect. I really like this POI. Sometimes you guys will see me point out POIs like this. The reason why is usually when this is just kind of a tendency I've seen over the past couple of years. If you have a potential POI, but then you have a wick and another wick, then that, in my opinion, shows that there could be a POI here. So let's actually test that out. Yeah, that's why I pointed out here. Actually, let me. Probably not. I do see weak of interest. I do see an inefficiency. But yeah, you could even see inefficiency here. So I guess, yeah. Very nice. By disruptions, do you just mean failed reactions? Yep. Yeah, those are kind of, I would say they're probably more of the easier kind of scenarios to catch. I say easier in quotes because obviously none of this is easy. Because pretty much the easiest way to catch a transition in play is just through a failed reaction because it's technically showing its hand. And that's why I emphasize disruptions as models of SE inefficiencies and structural ranges, pretty much a combined mix of them. And then analyzing those disruptions in a specific location, whether that's at the top of a trend, lower of the trend, I guess you could consider that your personal model. So I mean, that's just kind of like an interesting way to look at it. Unwillingness is a bit tricky. Is Alfie on the call? I don't think he is. No, he's not. That's something he had trouble with a couple of months ago. Unwillingness is it's something that's pretty hard to understand, and it's hard to, what's the way to put it? Right, so we have our trend, and let's say this has that, and so if we break, this is potentially internal unwillingness here, meaning that it's a lot harder to justify this continuation. But actually, let me do a different example. Okay, so we understand where our structural range is. And we only understand this low if, right, there is, right, that initial break that shows a continuation POS. So the only way, in my opinion, right, to see this manifest is obviously still bearish based on the overall, right? If we are to see some sort of continuation here, and we see the break, right? And then now we have the solidified high internally, right? And now we break the internal. This would be an LG, and this would be unwillingness. Why? Because the reaction based on the initial POI reaction has failed because of the continuation BOS causing an LG, and therefore this is unwillingness. But unwillingness, I don't really like to rely too much on that, because there are false, just as easy as you convert one way, you can convert the other way, because off of this specific scenario, let me delete this. You can only assume that you're being bullish, or that you're going to be bullish, right? So now let's say you do have the continuation, but you meet target, and then you obviously now have a transition to the downside. So now this, right, at the moment of the initial scenario before the red, we can only assume bullishness based on the failed reaction. But now this is another failed reaction, so now that's why we can only assume downside from here. So you can really only play based on the failed reactions, the continuation reactions, right, and reading a narrative, making them a narrative based on that, if that makes sense. Because this is kind of what's happening with gold right now. Where we saw that, right, we had the potential unwillingness here based on the continuation BOS. So therefore we could only be bullish. So you could see the low momentum, and that's what led this to be bullish. And that's why we were leaning towards that bullish side. So once the target was met, you could see that it now had another failed reaction. And that's why we can only assume the bearishness from here. So now whatever happens from here is just pretty much going to show us whether that new form bias, that being the bearish side, will hold or not. So I would say just focus on reactions. Yep, you can always DM me, of course, too, bro. But does anybody have any questions, anything they want to show, go over, or any questions even from last week's stuff? Draw on my screen. I don't know what you're saying. And then here. Well, let me actually annotate so I don't have to put that on the screen. You could also assume that if this just rockets up, then it could be a liquidity grab. And if it does rocket up, and I guess it would be considered high momentum, then yes, you can also assume that you could also have the continuation to the upside. So really just, excuse me, and by high momentum, I mean something like this. So yeah, if this does clear a little bit lower and then do that, then yes, you could also assume, right, the conversion to the upside then as well. Also, yep, turbulence point, reaction confirmed, break, and that's kind of why I'm assuming a continuation to the upside here. Because the confirmation was here, the reaction was confirmed, and you could even see that internally here, there was, right, a sign of continuation. Yep, and then you have the liquidity grab, and that here, that's where that kind of changed the entire bias, is once the liquidity grab met here. And this move here is exactly why we converted bias here. Like if you go watch last week's Zoom, this is pretty much the reason why we converted our bias. Why? Because low, high retracement, confirmed reaction based on continuation POS. So we were bullish, and that's why we got the last bullish move. But now the liquidity grab here is what changed the bias. Something you saw on Tuesday. Yeah, you're fine. That's fine. Okay. Okay, 50% inefficiency, continuation. Nice. Let's go ahead and annotate here. Wrong color. Right, and this is kind of what I want to see with gold. So before we go into your scenario, it's kind of what I want to see with gold. You see that there's, right, the super deep retracement. You can see the conversion to the upside, and then now you see then the collapse, and then this is what catalyzes, right, the liquidity to be swept. And then once the liquidity is swept, then this is kind of what you want to see, right, that conversion to the upside. That's really what I want to see with gold. On a much bigger scale though, so I'll come back to that scenario though. See here what I mean? Where I'm really hoping this entire catalyst here is generating pretty much taking out liquidity, and I hope it takes its time because, like I said, this move has been a month, and so once you see that liquidity swept, then you have the potential of potentially seeing a very, very big move in the opposite direction. And I mean, if you really want to see what I mean with that, bingo. You see? Right, except this one, it actually does take that out, but I don't really care about whether or not it takes it out or not. I care that it has the reaction to the upside, which then fails to take that out. And I mean, if you want to apply logic into it, you can see that this is a continuation BOS here, meaning there should be a POI there, and that's what pretty much causes the continuation because the original direction is bearish. So then once you see the conversion, then this and this is where you want to get opportunities for the upside. So that's kind of what a transition is. But yeah, let's go ahead and get back to your move here. Yeah, very nice. Very nice. 5 pip stop and that blue. And as you can see, this is pretty much showing a conversion from bearish to bullish. And that conversion is occurred, right, by here. You can see this, the deep retracement there, continuation BOS, and then you see that we failed to break here, right? And so that unwillingness is now continuation BOS here, and then you could even see, right, from high into low, this is a premium, and that premium is aiming for target X. Target X is met, the field is obtained, liquidity grab in opposite direction, right? And now here's where you want to see that that conversion come into play, right? And even though here this is a high risk move, let me actually delete this now. So now here we have confirmed the liquidity grab based on that. This is a high risk move here. Why? Because high low retracement. Even though we are trying to assume or trying to catch a reversal, we have to understand the continuation bias. So this high risk move leads to, right, another failed reaction based on the scalp structural range. So now that that fails, right, this is here now unwillingness based on a POI. So you can potentially assume that order flow is also shifting. So that's pretty interesting move. Pretty good to study. So I guess you can see theory, and then while also trying to maintain the continuation bias come into play here and coincide with one another to analyze a transition. But yeah, very interesting. Very good. Yeah, any more questions, concerns, or we can go ahead and end it right here. Cool, let's see it. Can we use your screen? Sure, go for it. Where exactly? Check M3 during overlap today. Or I think you said Tuesday? Wednesday. There should be enough space. Yep. Oh, EU. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Here. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't consider this a failed reaction though. I would consider this a continuation reaction. The reason why I'm saying that, you're like, delete your annotations. So our original direction is up. And we know that based on structure, based on where price is, we see that based on momentum as well. So all you're doing is catching the continuation based on the continuation move. So here, continuation BOS, right? And so now, after the liquidity is taken, right, you have the model being shown, and you can see the discount. So you actually, yeah, I guess you could say it is a failed bearish conversion, but that's only from the micro, because the scalp is still technically bullish as well. But yeah, I do see what you're saying. So I guess this would be an inverse scenario, not a failed reaction to the based on the continuation, but a continuation reaction, if that makes sense. But I do see what you're saying. Because the gold example, that was a failed reaction based on the continuation to the downside. And you actually caught the bullish move because that downside move failed. Yeah. So one is a conversion. This is a continuation. Yep. And I'm gonna just pull that up just to show you again. Conversion. Continuation. But yeah, I think that's a good stopping point though for today. Some good lessons. Thank you for showing that. Thank you for showing the gold scenario. Yeah, pretty much all I said was make sure you guys watch last week's Zoom. And I am just I'm gonna kind of just take like a roll call once I do this. Anybody who I see isn't active in the chat, I'll probably just put them on pre-sign up just because I want to see who's active. And if I do put you on pre-sign up, then obviously just message me and I'll put you back. But I kind of just want to see how many people are actually active, because I'm sure it's a good 100, 150 of you, even if you don't say anything. Yep, cool. So yeah, I guess this is a good stopping point. Thank you guys for hopping on, and I will see you guys on Tuesday.